Morning. This is December 11th. My name is Douglas Griffin. December 11th of 2022. This is my Sunday school class, and we are in the book of Exodus. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, just going to go straight through the Bible, because I feel that's the best way to really understand the full context of what God's saying. Um, so in Exodus chapter 18, a little recap, the children of Israel gone through the Red Sea, seen Pharaoh's armies drown. God took them directly to a lake that was bitter so that he could show them that I can turn the bitter things sweet, which he did. God takes us sometimes through circumstances just to show us that, oh, God's over that circumstance. We don't need to be afraid of that circumstance. God can make that bitter thing sweet. He takes them to another situation where there is no water at all and shows them that he could bring water from the rocks. Um, there are places in that part of the world where there actually is water that's kind of in the limestone. So it's like hidden. This was not a creative miracle, but this is God took them to the hidden place where there actually water had been stored up. So when we think things are horrible, God said, no, 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 I've already got something there. You can't see it right now, but just trust me. And he has you strike the rock, and his mercy pours out. No, I didn't even know that was there. Right. God always has a plan, and this is what God's trying to teach them. I'm leading you into a situation. I already know about it. I already have a plan for it. What I need you to do is relax and trust me. So, in chapter, morning, Susie, in chapter 18, they've just finished fighting the Amalekites. As soon as God did big miracle, came the test. Always. Big miracle. The miracle's there not because God likes the miracles. The miracle's there to teach us a lesson because the test is coming. So Jesus would get frustrated with the people who were following him because they were just looking for a sign. You're just looking for a sign. You're only following me because of the food. Yeah, I did the thing, but what was the lesson you're supposed to learn from the thing? When the food showed up, what am I teaching you? Am I just filling your bellies? Or am I trying to show you that even if you have just a few loaves of bread and a few fish, I can multiply that. I'm trying to teach you something. I'm not just trying to fill your belly. And so the same thing was going on in the wilderness. Each miracle, there was supposed to be a lesson that they're supposed to learn about God because he's having to retrain them. They've been in Egypt for hundreds of years. He's having to retrain their thinking, teach them this is how I work. Because we always, which today's lesson you'll see, we have our own viewpoint on how God works, which is often not accurate. So he's trying to show them. So the Amalekites have just left, um, and Moses' father-in-law, Jethro, has shown up with his wife and two kids. He dropped them off with the father-in-law before he went to Egypt, before Moses went back to Egypt. His kids had just gotten circumcised, and he, he didn't know what to expect in Egypt. So here, you guys stay here, wait with your grandfather, and I'll meet you back here, which is exactly what happened. So here's a new situation that's come up. In Exodus chapter 18, verse 13, it says, and so it was on the next day, the very next day after Jethro, his father-in-law, showed up, that Moses sat to judge the people, and the people stood before Moses from morning until evening. Now, why is this happening at this point? What everybody is coming up because they're having disputes, and Moses needs to straighten them out. So he's lined up hundreds of thousands of people, and they're explaining the problem, and Moses is having to make a decision on what and he's waiting for God. It's actually not Moses just making stuff up. He then prays, he goes, talks to God, and comes back with an answer. This is not how God wants things to work out. In fact, he gives them the opportunity right very soon after this, on purpose. God's allowing this to happen so they can see how ridiculous it is to depend on one person. I want 100,000 of you to line up and each of you come forward with a question. We get frustrated in class when there's like 3 people with your hands up. Oh man, we want to go. Why do those 3 people have their hands up? Wait, I got a question. So just imagine hundreds of thousands of people all lined up. You're waiting, like, what is going on? So God's wanting to show them, you can have a personal relationship with me, each of you. You don't have to all wait for one man. God often puts us in a situation so that we'll see the futility of what we're doing and we'll want the answer, as opposed to God just coming and telling us the answer. He wants us to see the necessity of the answer. So a good teacher will present a problem to a class, and the class goes, "Ooh, I want to fix that," and then he shows them how to fix it, as opposed to just telling them, "Today I'm going to show you how to fix blah 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 blah." And you're thinking, "Why do I need to know that?" He presents it to the situation so that the kids want to learn that. They're saying, "Hey, how do you fix that? It's good that you asked, and let me show you." And those are always the best when you've enticed the student into wanting to learn, as opposed to telling them they need to learn. So in life, there are things we want to tell people, but it's always better to wait until they ask you for the answer instead of you just going into their life. Hey, you need to fix this. They'll learn better and do it better when they see the problem. Oh, this is not working. I need to wait, right? Because you can tell them in advance, that's not working. But until they believe it's not working, they don't learn their lesson very well. So God's saying, this is not working. See how you're all lined up? Coming up, in the chapters coming up, they're going to have opportunity. God's going to present to them the opportunity. Hey, each of you can have a personal relationship with me. They're going to turn him down and actually say, no, we prefer that you just talk to Moses, which is nutty. So God will continue to show them the futility of that, and show us the futility of depending on a specific person to hear from God for us. Now, he can put people in our lives that hear from God, but he doesn't want us to depend on that person. He wants us to have our own personal pipeline to God. So all these people are lined up. The thing that has happened that has made all the people lined up is that Amalek has just been defeated. In Exodus 17, verse 13, previous verse, it says, so Joshua defeated Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. So they drop all their stuff and they run off, and now you've got all this stuff to divide up, right? You defeat Amalek, and Amalek throws down their swords and shields and whatever, and you grab their backpacks off of them and throw them down to the ground. Now you got all this stuff. The spoils of war, and so people probably arguing about, well, I get this, well, that, well, I'm a soldier, why do you need a sword? You're a cook. Big fights suddenly are breaking out over this stuff they got from Amalek. So they're lined up. So Exodus chapter 18, verse 14 says, so when Moses' father-in-law saw all that he did for the people, he said, what is this thing that you're doing for the people? Why do you alone sit and all the people stand before you from morning until evening? And Moses says to his father-in-law, because the people come to me to inquire of God. They know that God sits and talks to me, so that's why. Now, the solution that he's going to give Moses has thought about it. It's not like Moses is stupid, and the solution is, we should have a bunch of people, right? And Moses is reticent to do that for 2 reasons. One, he doesn't trust that the people will rightly judge, right? Okay, let this guy take half the people and let this other guy take the other half the people, but he doesn't trust that God's going to speak to those people. And that they're going to give people good advice. So that's really, let's say, I'll just combine that into one reason. So he's, I got to do it all on myself. Um, well, it really is two. So on the side of the person giving the advice, Moses doesn't trust, but he also doesn't trust that people will hear correctly. He doesn't trust the motives of the people, that they're going to come and really ask the right question, that they're going to come and hear the right answer in the right way. And so he's taking this all on himself. I want to give some examples when people came to inquire of the Lord, because we have the same problems today. When we go to the Lord, are we asking the right question? Are we really listening? Do we already have our minds made up? Because God is always speaking, but he has to train us really to not already have an agenda when we come before him. We see our neighbors been playing loud music I'm making this up, all day long, and all for the past several weeks. Every Friday night they've got their music turned up. Then you see your neighbor one day and says, "Oh, I'm not feeling well," and you go in and pray, "Lord, help that neighbor to not feel well for a long time, so that music will stop." So if you need to put them in the hospital, do what you need to do, Lord, so that they will stop, especially on Friday nights, continue to make them ill. So if we come to God with our own agenda, we're not going to hear the right answer from God. So I've got some examples of this, and we've got to see ourselves in these examples. Sometimes our mind is already made up, and when God's like, we already know what we're going to do. So we're asking God to bless what we're already going to do. And okay, so here's an example. In 1 Kings chapter 22, Ahab has just, in the previous chapter, seen some property next to the castle that he wanted. The castle, the temple, whatever the palace that he wanted. And it belonged to a friend of his, and he complains to his wife, "Man, I really want that property because it's right next to us. We should own that." So Jezebel arranges for the guy to get killed and comes to Ahab and says, "You don't have to worry about that no more. You can take his property now because I killed him." And he goes, "Thank you." And in the next chapter, he sees some land next to Israel that he thinks he wants. And he says, "That land belongs to us. We should have that land." Now, a bad thing just happened. He just took his neighbor's land. His neighbor said, "No, this is my land. You can't have it." And then his wife kills him. So he's doing the same thing again on a bigger scale. That land next to Israel. We should have that land. That land should belong to us. And God's already shown him an answer. The prophet's already come and said, "That was wrong of you to do that. You should have taken your neighbor's land next to your palace." Now he's doing the same thing in a bigger scale, right? He already knows that he shouldn't do it. God's already told him he shouldn't do it. He already knows. But he's got his mind made up. That's next to, I should have that. So in 1 Kings chapter 22, verse 6, it says, "Then the king of Israel gathered the prophets together, about 400 men, and said to them, 'Shall I go against Ramoth Gilead to fight, or should I refrain?'" He already knew the answer. He wanted yeses. Because he already knew that he was going to do it. So they said, "Go up, for the Lord will deliver it into the hand of the king." And Jehoshaphat said, who's the king of Judah, right? So this is Ahab's the king in the north, Judah's the king in the south. Jehoshaphat's the king in the south. And he says, "Wait, is there not still a prophet of the Lord here that we maybe inquire of him? I know you got your prophets, your people that you think give great advice, but they're really just your yes men." And we all have yes men in our lives that if we said, "Should I go next door and slap my neighbor?" "Yeah, you should. Yeah, because they've been bothering you," and blah, blah, and they'll disagree with everything you say, but that doesn't mean we should do it, right? You need to go to the people who really are neutral and are going to hear from God when you ask them a question. So when he says, "Is there a prophet of the Lord I know you hear all those prophets, but those you hired those prophets. Is there, somebody who really tells the truth? Let me inquire of him. So the king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, well, there's still one man, Micaiah, the son of Imlah, by whom we may inquire of the Lord, but I hate him because he does not prophesy good concerning me, but evil. He always, he tells me I'm doing the wrong thing, and we don't like those people. I'm not doing the wrong thing. I'm doing the right. How dare you come and challenge me? Okay. So he does exactly, when they go to Micaiah, he does exactly what they think. He says, no, you should not do it. You're going to get in trouble. No. Now, 400 prophets have said, yes, no. One guy says no. And here's what happened. They ask him, how could you say no? All the rest of us have said yes. He says, therefore, look, he says, the Lord has put a lying spirit in the mouth of all these prophets of yours. And the Lord has declared a disaster against you. So the Lord has put a lying spirit in their mouth. The Lord allowed them to believe what the king wanted to believe. The king comes to him and says, hey, I want to go do that. It's going to really help me out. It's going to help Israel. It's the best thing in the world. What do you think? Well, he's already influenced you. How are you going to say, no, that's wrong? And people, when they come to you with their side of the story, they're always going to make themselves look good and what they want to do look good. And so it's sometimes better when somebody knows nothing about it and comes to you and says, hey, I don't think you should do that. Or and you think, okay, that's where because this person didn't know anything about it. Because we like to influence when we tell our story, this is what's going on with this person and they're so horrible to me. So do you think I should complain? Well, yeah, because the way you presented it, yes. So through his mouth, lies are coming out about the situation, and the people go, yes, and God allows that because that's what you want. You wanted the yes. So you put the yes in them, and God allowed it. Yeah, go ahead. You can have that lying spirit. That's a lie. You're lying, and I'm not going to stop you because I want you to see the consequences. I came to you before and said, don't do this, and you didn't do it. So now I'm going to have to allow you to do it. So then you will learn that when I say no, I mean no. So I've said, don't touch the fire, don't touch the fire, don't touch the fire, don't touch the fire. But you keep touching the fire. So I'm going to have to let you touch it. You keep trying to, so that you'll understand when I say that's bad for you, you'll believe me. Sometimes we are incorrectly interpreting the signs. This is part of Moses' hesitancy, is that people are going to come forward and give just the wrong story, and the person won't know how to interpret and say, wait, this is kind of one-sided. They're going to get the wrong information. Or somebody will be incorrect, or the person, if it's not him, if I let this person judge, they're going to incorrectly interpret the signs. For example, in 2 Kings chapter 3, the Moabites have been attacking. God has already said you need to fight the Moabites. He said, yeah, it's okay to fight the Moabites. They keep attacking you. So they get the three kings, the king from the north, the king from the south, right? Israel is called king of Israel in the north, king of Judah in the south. And to the east of them, king of Edom, which is Esau's kids. Three kings get together to fight the Moabites. He says, so the king of Israel went with the king of Judah and the king of Edom. And they marched on that roundabout route 7 days, and there was no water for the army, nor for the animals that followed them. And the king of Israel said, alas, for the Lord has called these three kings together to deliver them in the hand of Moab. I mean, God sent us, but he sent us so that we can be defeated. Because he's incorrectly interpreting the signs, right? Everything's going wrong. But in this case, they already knew they were supposed to do it. God had already given the word to do it. So I understand that signs can be confusing. Well, how do you know when a sign happens? Is that God stopping you, or is that just something you're supposed to overcome? Well, if you've been able to empty yourself and God's already given you the okay, then when the bad thing comes up, you think, okay, God's going to take care of that. if God has not given you the okay. If you gave God the okay, you already went to God and said, bless this trip I'm about to depart on. I mean, you've already made the reservations, and you give me traveling graces. Well, you've already booked it all. So when bad things happen, you have to really be honest. Did I ask God if I should be doing this, or did I just start doing this? Because maybe this is a roadblock that God is sending. So sometimes it's hard to interpret. Is that a roadblock, or is that just something that I'm supposed to, go around? In this case, they already knew that they were supposed to attack the Moabites. But when they saw the problem, the king of Israel immediately, oh, this is God's punishing us. But Jehoshaphat said, who's the king in the south, is there no prophet of the Lord here that we may inquire of the Lord by him? And again, this is what Moses is saying. All the people are here to inquire. They want a word from God. So one of the servants of the king of Israel answered and said, Elisha, the son of Shaphat, is here. And he poured water in the hands of Elijah. So Elisha poured water in the hands of Elijah. That didn't mean he worked for them. He was his guy. He would even help him wash his hands. And so he studied under Elijah. So you know he's a good guy. So he says, the word of the Lord is with him. So the king of Israel, Jehoshaphat, and the king of Edom went down to him. Then Elisha said to the king of Israel, what have I to do with you? So he's not happy that they're there, because I don't really like you. But the king of Israel said to him, no, for the Lord has called these three kings together to deliver them in the hand of Moab. And we just need to know, did he call us together to punish us? There's no been water for 7 days. And he's overreacting to the circumstances. He doesn't have his mind made up like the previous king did. And so God allowed him just to mess up. In this case, God had said go, but now he's running into adversity. And so Elijah says to him, as the Lord of hosts lives before whom I stand, surely were it not that I regard the president of Jehoshaphat, because you I don't like, but that guy's a good guy. So I'm going to go ahead and prophesy. So if it was not that I regarded the presence of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, I would not even look at you nor see you. But bring me a musician. And then it happened when the musician played that the hand of the Lord came upon him. This is a thing that happens to a lot of people who are prophets, or even in a service, the music will play, the musician will play. And as the musician is playing, the Spirit of the Lord will come down. And he knew, I don't know the answer, but I know the conditions to set so that God hopefully will speak to me. So bring a musician, have them play, and I'm going to be in prayer. And then the hand of the Lord came down upon him, and he gave them advice and says, don't worry, you'll be able to handle this. Here's how to handle it. This is not a roadblock from God. This is just simply a circumstance that God wanted you to stop and consult him. That's the only reason why this is there. But he already told you you're going to get the victory, and you are. Sometimes we're asking the wrong question. This is also part of Moses' hesitation, and that we see played out. Sometimes we're asking the wrong question, which is, I tried to give that example earlier, where we're totally misreading the signs, and there's something different we should be asking. In 2 Kings chapter 8, a different king of Israel, in verse 8, the king says to Hazael, take a present in your hand and go meet the man of God. Now, you don't have to do that. If God's going to give somebody an answer, it's not because, here I gave you $20. Now, if God's moving on you to give somebody $20, do it. But if you're doing it in order to bribe the person, in order to get a favorable thing from them, that's not how God works. But take a present in your hand, go meet the man of God, and inquire of the Lord by him, saying, shall I recover from this disease? So the king of Israel has been doing bad stuff, but he's been trying to repent, and he's going back and forth, right? Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. So now he's got a disease. And am I going to recover? Now, I got to tell you, he's asking the wrong question. It seems like the right question. I'm sick. Am I going to recover from this disease? Okay. So Hazael went to meet him and took a present with him. Hazael is the king's right-hand guy. And of every good thing of Damascus, 40 camel loads, and he came and stood before him and said, 40 camel loads worth of gifts, because he wants a positive response. Okay. Your son Ben-Hadad, king of Syria, has sent me to you. I'm sorry, I said this is the king of Israel, king of Syria, saying, shall I recover from this disease? And Elisha said to him, go say to him, you shall certainly recover. Now, he was asking the wrong question, because that was the truth. Yes, you're going to recover from the disease. He says, but however, the Lord has shown me that he will actually die. Now, how he's going to recover, but he's going to die? Yes, because it won't be from the disease. He's asking the wrong question. Then he set his countenance in a stare. So he's looking at Hazael, right? He's looking at Hazael, and Elisha is staring at him. Since he set his countenance in a stare until he was ashamed. And then the man of God wept. So he's looking at the guy until the guy just gets embarrassed, because he's staring at his heart. Because he knows he's going to recover from the disease, but he's going to die. And then he looks at Hazael, and he just stares at him, and he starts to cry. And Hazael said, why is my Lord weeping? And he answered, because I know the evil that you will do to the children of Israel. Their strongholds you will set on fire, and their young men you will kill with the sword, and you will dash their children and rip open their women with child. You're going to do horrible things, and I'm weeping because you're so evil. Did he deny it? No. Did he just know that he went back to the king of Syria and said, the man says you're going to live. Yay! And then, sure enough, the next day the guy starts to get better, and then Hazael comes in and chokes him to death and kills him. And says, oh no, he's dead. Now, he did recover from the disease, but his right-hand man killed him. He was asking the wrong question. The question is, should I trust Hazael? No, do not trust him. But he was asking, am I going to recover from the disease? And sometimes we're short-sighted. We think the problem is this, and really the problem is something totally different. And we're going to God and we're just, Lord, what about this? And what about, as opposed to, Lord, show me what the problem is. We already think we know. And so God say, okay, yeah, that'll be fixed. But you're not seeing what the whole problem. Thanks you, I got my answer. Thanks, goodbye. And God's like, but Hazael's gonna, I'm good. I just want to know about this disease. And that's us being short-sighted. So Moses is saying, it's the questions people are going to ask. Not only do I have to worry about the prophet himself correctly interpreting things, but I have to worry about the people asking the right question. So here's another problem. 2 Kings chapter 22. Go inquire the Lord for me. There's another king asking for the people and for all Judah. So at this point, the king of Judah, so Israel's already been carried away. They've already got in trouble. I mean, the north of Israel, right? Now the southern tribe, their king is acting up. And he says, I need an answer from the Lord. Their people, actually, it wasn't the king, I'm sorry, the people had been messing up, and the people had been ignoring God and making fun of his temple, and the people had been really a mess for a long time. And so they discovered these scriptures that they've been ignoring. They hadn't even looked at the Bible, and they find these scriptures and go, oh my goodness, you need to inquire the Lord for me. So, because there was a prophecy about this time that we're in. Is all this bad stuff about to happen? So he's saying, go inquire the Lord for me, for the people, and for all of Judah concerning the words of the book that has been found. For great is the wrath of the Lord that is aroused against us, because our fathers have not obeyed the words of this book. We're not doing nothing the Bible said to do. We're in trouble to do according to all that is written concerning us. So Hilkiah the priest, these three men, Ahachim, Achibor, Shaphan, and Isaiah went to Huldah the prophetess. These five men went to this woman because she's going to tell you the truth. Please know that Jeremiah is alive, and Amos and Obadiah and all these other men who got their books published in the Bible. But they all ignored them and went to her because she knew how to tell you the truth. So they went to her and they spoke with her. I need somebody who wants the truth. And Moses' fear is the people, they may not want the truth. Sometimes we don't want to know what's really going to happen. Well, she gives him the truth. Yeah, God's about to judge you guys. Sorry. However, the answer was more complicated than that. And that's another fear that Moses has, why Moses is afraid to relinquish, because God's talking directly to him. And sometimes the answer is complicated. And we need to understand that there's more to it, because everybody was not in trouble in that situation. Yeah, God was going to send judgment, but was going to fall on everyone in that situation. In 2 Kings chapter 22, verse 18, she says, but as for the king of Judah, who sent you to inquire of the Lord, in this manner you shall speak to him. Tell him this. Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, concerning the words which you have heard about everything happening bad, because your heart was tender, and you humbled yourself before the Lord when you heard that I spoke against the place and against all its inhabitants. They would become a desolation and a curse, and you tore your clothes and you wept before me. I also have heard you. So the answer is more complicated. You're going to be okay. They're not. And sometimes we don't want the complicated answer. We just want the quick answer. Another thing, again, because Moses does the big decision, do I relinquish control and do I let other people judge? There's another thing he's worried about. Sometimes we don't want to accept consequences. Here's an example in Jeremiah chapter 21. Please inquire the Lord, for Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, is making war against us. So in Judah, right, Huldah has already prophesied bad stuff's going to happen. Well, now it's happening. And they don't want to, they're trying to change God's minds. So Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, is making war against us. Perhaps the Lord will deal with us according to all his wonderful works, that the king may go away from us. Because, maybe God will be merciful in the situation, and not if he's warned you and warned you and warned you and warned you. Now consequences have to come, because apparently consequences are only going to change your behavior. God wants our to be able to change through a word, but sometimes that's not going to happen. So the consequence has to happen, and then we have to look at the consequence and go, okay, now I'm going to do something different. So I have to allow the consequence to happen. Otherwise, you won't change. So then Jeremiah said to them, thus you shall say to Zedekiah, different king than the other king who first inquired about it, because God says, you're going to be fine. It's not going to happen even in your day, but I am going to bring consequences, but not while you're king, because you at least were trying to change your ways. But now Zedekiah is king. So say this to Zedekiah. Thus says the Lord God of Israel, behold, I will turn back the weapons of war that are in your hands, with which you fight against the king of Babylon and the Chaldeans, who besiege you outside the walls. So, your guys who are outside the walls of Israel, fighting and with those weapons, I'm going to turn them on you. So you're outside the walls, fighting them. Here's what's going to happen. I will ascend them in the midst of the city. So you're going to be forced back into the middle of the city. They're going to just keep besieging and winning. It says, I myself will fight against you with an outstretched hand and with a strong arm, even in anger and fury and great wrath, because you still didn't change. The king repented, the rest of you. So no, consequences are going to come. And Moses is thinking, are people going to accept the consequences? They're going to hear that? Are people going to hear the truth? Again, this is Moses' his hang-ups. He knows these people, and I don't know if I can trust other people to judge and trust other people to give the correct news, if I can trust the people to ask the right questions. Very controlling. And the problem is we can't control that, right? So for all this time, he's judging people all by himself. And his father-in-law says, so here's Moses trying to justify it. In Exodus chapter 18, verse 17. I'm sorry, verse 16. It says, when they have difficulty, they come to me. And I judge between one and another. And I make known the statutes of God and his laws. So that's, I do it because I don't trust anybody else. So Moses' father-in-law said to him, the thing that you do is not good. Both you and these people who are with you will surely wear yourselves out. For this thing is too much for you, and you're not able to perform it all by yourself. So I know you want to be controlling of everything because you don't trust people, but God ultimately is going to train them. God wanted, though, the people to be in a situation they're all going to Moses, so they would think, this is taking too long, right? He's trying to get them to have a hunger for their own personal relationship. But we know that when he gave them an opportunity and he showed up on the mountain, They all went, nope, sorry, I don't want my own personal relationship. I feel more comfortable if I listen to that person and he tells us everything. And God's like, okay. God can't make us do anything. He chooses not to make us do anything. He sets before us life and death. He says, please choose life. But people often choose death. He says, set before you blessing and cursing. Choose the blessing. In fact, I'm using the word blessing and I'm using the word cursing. So you'll recognize the people will choose the cursing. So God comes down on the mountain. Hey, you can have a personal relationship. You don't have to stand in line and wait for Moses to tell you everything. And they go, nope. Okay. So he's saying you got to relinquish control, Moses, and I don't want you to think that it's all on you, right? He wants Moses to encourage the people to have their own personal relationships with God. But here's what they come up with. So listen now to my voice. I will give you counsel, and God will be with you. Stand before God for the people so that you may bring the difficulties to God. And you shall teach them the statutes and the laws and show them the way in which they must walk and the work they must do. So you explain the statutes of God to everybody. Then, moreover, you shall select from all the people able men such as fear God, men of truth, hating covetousness, not having it, bless my heart, but hating covetousness, meaning so that they can't be bought off. So people can't come in. Here's a great present. Now give me a really good word from God. Hating covetousness, and place such men over them to be the ruler over thousands, and then rule over hundreds, and then rulers over 50s, and rulers over 10. So we kind of have our court system set up that way. You know, the thousands, and then you appeal to 100. If you don't like that answer, you appeal to 10. And then if they don't like that answer, then they can come up to you, Moses, personally. So he says, and let them judge the people at all times. Then it will be that every great matter they shall bring to you. Like we bring the big things to the Supreme Court. Every great matter they'll bring to you, but every small, rather they themselves shall judge. You got to delegate. So it'll be easier for you, for they will bear the burden with you. Now, God's allowing this. His ultimate plan, though, was for us to have our own relationship with God. And then somebody confirms. And we go, oh, yeah, that confirms. I was praying about this, and that confirms. So in Exodus chapter 18, verse 23, it's like, chapter 23, how do we get there? It says, if you do this thing and God so commands you, then you'll be able to endure. And all these people will also go to their place in peace. And again, that's the answer. As parents, we have to teach our kids to have their own relationship with God. We want to do everything for them and control them and make all the decisions, and that doesn't help them. You help them when you teach them to have their own relationship. Even if they fail sometime, even if they fall, they will learn. But if and again, we can be a counselor if they come and ask. But at a certain point, that we need to feel that we have a relationship. Like, not, oh, listen how God speaks to that minister or to that person. God speaks to all of us all the time. If we're expecting that, if we know that daily he's speaking, then we know how to look around us, or we know how to listen to that still small voice inside, or we know how to look because we're expecting it. If we just think God talks to only the preacher, then we miss all the signs. We drive right past them. People who, I didn't see that sign, they just drove right past the sign. They didn't see it. They weren't expecting anything there. If we're not expecting, we're going to drive right past all the signs. So God wants us to have our own personal relationship. That's what's about to come up. He doesn't want us to depend on one person, and he doesn't want one person to think, I must counsel everybody. It's all on me, right? So Moses heeded the voice of his father-in-law and did all that he had said. And Moses chose able men out of Israel and made them heads over the people, rulers of thousands, rulers of hundreds, rulers of 50s, rulers of 10s. I do want you to know that God implemented a slightly different system later. But there's a flaw in what Moses is doing, but we'll discover the flaw when we get to the book of Numbers. But it's a start, at least, of Moses relinquishing and trusting that God will talk to the people, right? It's a start. When they were ready to leave, 40 years from now, because again, the people chose not to really listen to God, and God had to wear them out. until they finally listened. So it took 40 years for them to be ready to finally go into the promised land, and it's 40 years worth of lessons. That's okay. That's how long it took. Moses has these final words for them. In Deuteronomy chapter 18, he says, when you come into the land which the Lord your God is giving you, you shall not learn to follow the abominations of those nations. Because still, people did not trust their own personal relationship with God. They were still making themselves susceptible. God talks to every one of us individually. We just have to learn to quiet our minds and not make the same mistake that all those kings did, like we already have an agenda, or we have something that we want God to say, or we think we already know the solution, or if we can quiet ourselves and say, Lord, I'm ready, open to any solutions you have, whatever you say. I think I know how it should be solved, but I may be even asking the wrong question. So if we can learn to quiet ourselves, God will hear that still small voice, because God's not going to scream at us. He's just going to talk quietly. You know those teachers who, class, I need you to be quiet. I'm not going to scream. I'm going to teach you to learn to listen to this. The teachers who scream in order to get the class's attention, then they're teaching the class, you don't have to pay attention to me until I start screaming. Oh, okay, now I know to pay attention. But the ones who just, okay, I'm going to give you a homework assignment, and then the class is like, shut up, he's giving the homework assignment. So God's got it. I'm going to speak quietly like this and teach you to shut everything off. But I'm definitely speaking. So he ultimately wants us to have our own relationship, and then possibly go to someone who might give us confirmation that we are interpreting it correctly. But he doesn't want us to depend on those other people. But that's our tendency. It's just to depend, oh, that prophet said this, that person said that, and not really have our own. So he says, when you go into the other land, don't learn to follow the abominations of those nations, because you're still susceptible to needing somebody else. You flunked the test of personal relationship. And so now you're still susceptible to these other people. There shall not be found among you anyone who makes his son or daughter pass through the fire, or who practices witchcraft, or a soothsayer, or one who interprets omens, or a sorcerer, or one who conjures spells, or a medium, or a spiritist, or one who calls up the dead. For all who do these things are an abomination to the Lord. Because of these abominations, the Lord your God drives them out from before you. That's why God's getting rid of all the Canaanites, because they do anything other than listen to God. Because these people give them quick answers. Sometimes God gives you a slow answer. But we want a fast answer. I need this solved tomorrow. Do you? I think so, God. Yeah, sure, I think so. Well, no. So, but because we're insisting, let me go to that meeting. Let me go to that spiritual. So there are things that we put up above God, and God says, that's why I'm driving these people out. Don't you do those things. I'm still wanting you to have your own personal relationship. But it's going to take a while, apparently. Well, in 1 Samuel chapter 28, very famous passage, King Saul is there, and Saul shouldn't even be king, but we'll get into that later. Verse 7 says, then Saul said to his servants, find me a woman who is a medium, that I may go to her and inquire of her. And his servant said to him, well, in fact, there is a woman who is a medium at Endor. So Saul disguised himself, again, Endor, and yes, that's why Endor got her name, for bewitched. So Saul disguised himself and put on other clothes, and he went, and 2 men went with him, and they came to the woman by night. And he said, please conduct a seance for me, and bring up for me the one I shall name to you. The woman said to him, look, you know what Saul has done, how he's cut off the mediums and spiritists from the land. Why then do you lay a snare for my life to cause me to die? You try to get me trapped. No, go ahead and do it. It's okay. Because, well, there's a reason why Saul is doing this, because he had an agenda. He went to God. He didn't like the answer that God gave him. God told him what to do. He went to God to try to get God to change the agenda, and God did not answer him. And if God's not answering you, don't do nothing. No, do nothing. That's what I'm trying to say. Don't just say, well, I'm going to go ahead with my agenda. So it's like, I'm going to do it anyway. God's not answering. Well, that is the answer. That means wait. So they bring up Samuel from the dead, and the witch is very upset about it.
And then, so in verse 15, it says, now Samuel says to Saul, why have you served me by bringing me up? And Saul answered, I am deeply distressed, for the Philistines make war against me, and God has departed from me and does not answer me anymore, neither by prophets nor by dreams. Like God, yes, that's the answer. Don't do anything. He said, no, I got to do something. God, okay. So therefore I have called you, that you may reveal to me what I should do. Then Samuel said, why do you ask me, seeing the Lord has departed from you and has become your enemy? He's saying, isn't that the answer? God's trying to stop you from doing. He's putting up roadblocks to you. So why are you coming to me? Can't you see what God is doing? And the Lord has done for himself as he has spoke by me. I already told you, don't do it. And the Lord's now doing what he said he would do. I told you this before I was dead. For the Lord has torn the kingdom out of your hand and given it to your neighbor David. So let it go. Because you did not obey the voice of the Lord, nor execute his fierce wrath upon Amalek. Again, we're still fighting with Amalek. Therefore the Lord has done this thing to you this day. Moreover, the Lord will also deliver Israel with you into the hand of the Philistines, and tomorrow you and your sons will be with me. The Lord will also deliver the army of Israel into the hand of the Philistines. So, welcome. You're going to be here, you insisting, so come on in.
I'm dead, right?
Yeah, I'm dead. Choose your seat and sit down, because you won't listen to God. You're supposed to do nothing, but you're going to go and fight anyway, and then so I'll just see you tomorrow, but not in a good way. So, the people, so even though they're coming with a solution, right? Here's how you do it, Moses. Have these people judge and the real solution that God comes up with. Again, he doesn't mind us having people that we go to for confirmation, but he wants us to have our own personal relationship and not depend on anybody else, because he's talking to us individually. So we'll see him play that out. So this is the solution for Moses, to get Moses to stop thinking he needs to be so controlling. But it's not the ultimate solution for the people. But they do it. It's not the ultimate solution. So they judged the people at all times. The hard cases they brought to Moses, but they judged every small case themselves. Then Moses let his father-in-law depart, and he went his way to his own land. Now, I wrote that I'm not able to bear these. So I just want to give us a preview of what's coming up in Numbers chapter 11 as I end this thing. So it still didn't work, because that's not the ultimate solution. They're still depending on he didn't say, you need to have your own relationship. He said, go to these people and they will tell you what to do. And so in Numbers chapter 11, verse 14, after they've been in the wilderness a while, he says, I'm not able to bear all these people alone, because the burden is too heavy for me. So even though they came up with a solution and they're doing it, it still didn't solve the problem. So it says, this is Moses talking to God, if you treat me like this, please kill me here and now. If I have found favor in your sight, if you love me at all, you will kill me right now. And do not let me see my wretchedness. So please know, even though they came up with a solution, it's going to get so bad later that Moses is going to say, you have to kill me, because I can't take. If you love me, you'd kill me. So that's why I'm saying with confidence, this is not the ultimate solution. Even though they're doing it, this is not prescriptive where I'm supposed to, now we've got to implement this all over the land, because this didn't work. This is just simply descriptive scripture describing what they did, but it's not telling me that I have to do it, right? Because ultimately God does come down and say, here's what I want you to do. I want to make you a kingdom of priests that you all come before me. When God says it, then I have to say, okay, that's prescriptive. That's something I need to listen to. When this man came up with a solution, it's not a bad solution. It's just not the ultimate one. Ultimately, we have to, and I'm not saying we shouldn't have judges on earth or anything like that. I'm just saying 99% of the time, it's our personal relationship with God. We have to train ourselves to hear his voice, because he's definitely speaking. He speaks on the outside, speaks on the inside, and we'll get into all the different ways he speaks. But he talks to everybody individually. You don't have to depend on anybody else. We just have to be careful of our motives, that we don't already have an answer in our head when we come to God. Lord, should I leave for Jamaica on the 3rd or the 4th? Well, you've already decided that you're going, right? So God will say, leave on the 2nd. Heck, Get this over with. Let you know. As long as you're gonna go and get diphtheria. Let's get it. Yes. So God will give you the answer because you're asking the wrong question. We've seen that. You put a lion spirit in the mouth. Yes, because they're asking the wrong question. So we have to govern ourselves when we go to God and make sure we don't have an agenda for Him. And then, but we do have to understand that we have to trust ourselves and what God is speaking to us more than we trust other people. That it's okay to have counsel, but God wants to have an individual relationship. He wants us to trust Him and not put our trust in someone else and depend on them. Yes, we hear their counsel, we hear their wisdom, but we have to trust our own relationship with God. Okay, so I'm done. I'm preaching today. So if you come back at 11 o'clock, this is mostly for Donna and Dottie, because you're like, I'm good, I've had enough. But at 11 o'clock, preaching on 1 Samuel chapter 8, when Israel decided they wanted a king. Okay. So thank you again. The rest I will see you possibly on Wednesday. We're in the book of John. God is about to raise Lazarus from the dead. All right, thanks. Bye-bye.